All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Thursday, July 15th, 2021. I feel like the year is like in a minute, we're going to be seeing signs for Christmas sales. And it just, this year feels like it's galloping by. I want to welcome you tonight. We are going to pick up on the conversation we had last week in regards to spiritual principle. Next week, Keith Russell Lee is going to be here. Reverend Keith Russell Lee is a good friend, and he is a powerful New Thought minister based out of Philadelphia, and has a really powerful vision. And so I'm really excited for him to share with you. I will be talking and teaching and about retirement next weekend, next Thursday night. So very, very excited. And if you are here for the first time, this is really for people that are watching on Facebook or watching on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe, set yourself up. You can receive notifications. You can hit the bell on YouTube. I think on Facebook, it's like, you say, send me notifications. It'll let you know when we are posting new content. Let's see, is there anything else that I'm supposed to tell you before I get into the lesson? All right, it's going to be a great lesson. Let's take a moment to pray. I've been jumping into lessons so fast. I'm like, I gotta back up for a second. Let's pray. We do everything here in prayer. So let's take a moment to just relax right where we are. There is a message that the Spirit desires for each of us to have through this lesson. And so we just open our hearts, our minds to receive that. We know that there is plenty available for each one of us. And we've come to this lesson, this process, for the purpose of change at our core. Let what we learn here this evening shift us so that we are not the same. I thank you, Spirit, that this message has value for men and women everywhere. And so I bless this message to go forward, to touch lives, many, many thousands, tens of thousands of more people than we will reach in one setting. But this message has legs. I thank you, God. The name and the consciousness of I am. This prayer is so, and so it is, and amen. Okay. So let's see, where do I want to start? So where we were last week was talking about spiritual principle. And I wanted to take a break from the interpretation because sometimes we get stories that are strange in nature, meaning stories like Abraham being told to kill his son. And how do we approach a story like that? How do we apply spiritual principles to a story like that? Or something like, the story like Job, where God allows this character to bring calamity on his favored son. So the question is, how do we address stories like that? And so where we are right now is looking at what is spiritual principle. What is spiritual principle? And we use spiritual principle as a standard to help us look at a story and also to make sure that the interpretations that we are developing are in accord with spiritual principle. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to pick up where we were. So previously we talked about the omnipresence of God. There is but one presence and one power in the universe. God, the good, omnipotent, the everywhere evenly present spirit of absolute good. That's the first principle. And so when we're looking at a story, we're always coming to the story from the perspective of God is all there is. Principle number 2, the divinity of humankind. Humankind is made in the image likeness of God. So this would be important in terms of a story like the widow with the oil, where if you're familiar with that story that's found in the 4th chapter of Second Kings, it's a story where she is destitute and she goes to Elisha. And the way the story has often been taught is as if Elisha does something that creates the miracle. But coming from the perspective of principle, humankind is made in the image likeness of God, not male figures alone, humankind. And so it is her divine nature that she is able to tap into, and what she gets from Elisha are instructions on how to work with her own divine nature. Does that make sense? The third principle, where we ended last week, is the value and power of thought. It is through thinking that we form that which we have in our lives. So recognizing how your thoughts influence your world, how your thoughts not just influence, but create your world, means that you use your words carefully, because what you say about what you have determines how what you have becomes. So going back to that story, and maybe this might be our teaching example for the night. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 4, let's see if I can find it. Chronicles, Kings should be right here. First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles. No, Chronicles. Kings comes after Chronicles. There we go. So 2 Kings chapter 4, I'm pulling up the New Revised Standard Version. So 2 Kings chapter 4. So she goes to Elisha, and she says, "Now the wife of a member of the company of prophets cried to Elisha, 'Your servant, my husband, is dead. And you know that your servant feared the Lord, but a creditor has come to take my 2 children as slaves.' Elisha said to her, 'What shall I do for you?' She tells me, 'Tell me, what do you have in the house?' She answered, 'Your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil.' He said, 'Go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels and not just a few. Then go in and shut the door behind you and your children and start pouring into all these vessels. When each is full, set it aside.' So, and then she goes on, right? So that's the story. So the value and the power of your thought. What the widow was saying was that I have nothing except this jar of oil. So she's thinking of herself as not having. Now, Elisha doesn't say, don't think that. He tells her what to think. And basically he gives her instructions on what to do with what she has. And so the value and the power of thought, it is through thinking that we form that which we have in our lives. So what Elisha has essentially done is given her a different way to think about what is present in her experience. And when she employed that different way of thinking, it created a different experience with the same oil that had been in her house for however long it had been in her house. Is that making sense? Okay, so it is through thinking that we form that which we have in our lives. And so the scripture references for that are Isaiah 26:3, Proverbs 23:7, Isaiah 55:8 and 11, Romans 12:2, 1 Corinthians 2:16. But honestly, almost every Bible verse kind of points back to, if you think differently about what's going on in your experience, you get an entirely different experience. If you throw away the way that you're looking at it, especially if it's not working for you, then what you're looking at changes, which means what you're looking at has no meaning until you say what it means. I have a friend who, she texted me yesterday. She said, I got my 3rd flat tire inside of like 7 days. And I said, you know what that means, right? And she said, no, what does it mean? I said, it means whatever you say it means. So I decided, I'm gonna decide for you because maybe you need this truth lesson. I decided that something big is coming. I mean, experience is neutral. It is through thinking that we form that which we have in our lives. So I mean, all of these, I could teach a single lesson on all of these, because these are so important to pick up and incorporate and bring into your heart and hold on to. But let's move to principle number 4, practicing the presence. And let me encourage you to ask questions, because I saw a lot of comments on YouTube and on Facebook, and I love them, and that's great. I'm replying to them. But if there are things that you need help with, let's take our time. If we need to spend another week on this, let's do that, because this is game changer stuff that I'm handing to you right now. If you get this and you incorporate it into yourself. So here, let me say it like this. And my TM teacher, I just did a TM lesson, participated in a TM lesson just now, and my TM teacher, what she said, she was sharing with us a video from Maharishi. Maharishi is the person who brought transcendental meditation to the United States, and he taught this lesson. She let us listen to like 5 minutes of it, and in the lesson, essentially what he's saying is that if you get the understanding of God consciousness in your heart, then it then becomes the filter through which you look at the world. So in other words, if your understanding of God consciousness is intellectual, then the moment that something else comes up, your mind goes in a different way. But if God consciousness is in your heart, if it's infused and locked into your subconscious mind, then even if you're in a car wreck, you're looking at that situation from God consciousness. And so I'm taking that same story that she just told about, Maharishi, and sharing it with principle. If you get principle fused in your heart, then no matter what happens to you, like my friend, this is my 3rd flat tire inside, I think she said 5 days, inside of 5 days, then that it changes the perspective. It's no longer like, I can't believe this is happening to me. What's going on? Like what, and also, I'm sorry, there was one other piece. Her husband previously had to just go buy 4 tires. So in their family, there were like 7 or 8 tires that had to be bought inside of a 5-day span. And so, she was sharing that, and I was like, so you know what that means, right? Like, it means something big is going to happen for you, something great. Like, it's like, you name it, right? Because everything that I'm doing, I'm coming to it from principle. Glenda, you have your hand up.
So, good evening. I always think of like number 1, the omnipresence of God. Mm-hmm. I always think of the trio: omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. And I was surprised that I didn't see the other 2 on the list as principle. And so that was my question.
So that's an excellent question. So omnipresence of God simply means all of that, all the presence there is. So it's all the power that's present. It's all the knowledge that's present. It's all there is. So these aren't names for God. And this is, of course, how we teach it in the UFBL. So we teach the 3 omnis as alternate names for God, right? And so there we have 11 different, and there are many more than that, but there are 11 that we talk about. So we talk about the omnipresence of God, the omnipotence of God, the omniscience of God. We talk about God as principle. We talk about God as fundamental truth. We talk about God as father, mother. And again, so that God is a singular term, but we have all these other names to talk about God. Right now, it's just the name of the principle. It's the way we describe the principle, but you could have said the first principle is the allness of God. It's just the moniker that we give it to talk about this concept that spirit is everywhere evenly present.
Okay, because I have heard taught the allness of God is the 3, but then when I just saw the 1, I was, wondering. Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? How's this resonating with you? Can you do something with this? Or let me ask you, How can you use this in your life? Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
I will say that the biggest one, the one that's had the most impact for me, is the divinity of humankind. Because I used to have really low self-esteem and low self-worth. And the more that I became to understand, I don't know if I'm using correct grammar today, I apologize. I don't know. The more I came to understand God's dwelling in me, my entire life continues to just unblossom with the realization of what is possible for me. And I guess the other one about the power of thought, like you were saying, I like back in April, I realized that when I would look at stuff, I would like see somebody accomplishing something, I would think, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I didn't know I was thinking that, but when I became aware and started shifting, when I caught myself saying the opposite, now that's starting to be the automatic, is that I'm saying I can do that, and how can I figure that out and all of that. So just knowing that those principles exist, and something that you said a long time ago about when you were first a truth student, that you would just play with it and let me see if this is true for me, has just helped me to on my growth path. So
wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. It's I'm trying to think which lesson to share, like which story to share. So it is putting these principles into action takes practice. Like you have to practice it. And the thing is that you can't really practice. I don't want to say you can't practice it in good times, but you know where you are when the crap hits the fan. Like if you think about, if you just take yourself back to March 15th, 2020, when everything began to shut down, and what was your first thought, and what was your next thought, and like where did you go? Not how you recover, because we all had to recover, but think about where you went, because that tells you what's active inside of you. Whatever your first thought is when stuff goes funky, it is, if you squeeze a lemon, you're going to get lemon juice. When we were squeezed through 2020 and a good part of 2021, what kind of juice came out? Was it panic juice? Was it anger juice? Was it sad juice? Was it depressed juice? It's like what came out, because what came out is telling you it's information. It's not an opportunity to beat yourself up. It's just information to know that, that's what's active in my consciousness. You don't learn patience just learning what the definition of patience is. You learn patience through situations that require its presence, its activation. And so, they say necessity is the mother of invention. It's creating though what it is that you need, but those situations come to help you bring it out, because you may not know how to cultivate it absent that situation. And so what you learn to do from a principle standpoint, stuff is really, really something, really, really, really special, really funny looking. Then what you learn to do is to say, what is seeking to be birthed in me right now? Something is trying to come forward, and this situation that I am in is looking for me to release a new quality of me into expression. So to that point, I have a property in Houston that is for sale, and it needs some work. And I had, before it needed the work, I had offers up the wazoo. And I was like, yeah, get out the way, get out. Like, just like batting them out the way, batting them out the way. Well, now that I need the offer, because the what it's going to take to fix it up is like, I'm not willing to do that. Now it's like crickets. So I had, from a principal standpoint, I had to ask the question, what quality is seeking to be born in me, right? Because I'm not waiting for the outer expression to determine how I feel and what I believe and how I see the situation. And so I had to be moved by an inner vision rather than an outer vision. And what that looks like on a practical level is that in the morning when I pray and I have my conversations with my CSO, my name for God, my chief spiritual officer, when I have my conversations with my CSO, I'm affirming that the right and perfect buyer comes now. And it's an offer that the buyer is happy with and that I'm happy with, and everybody is pleased with this deal. Now, from the exterior, I've had some people kind of beat me up on the price that I'm looking for. Right? I had a nice little beat down from a friend who came in and was like, well, I'm trying to help you. You got this, whatever. I mean, where's the room for the investor? And I'm like, okay. But then I had to go back. Am I moved by my outer vision? Am I moved by my inner vision? And the principle is God is everywhere evenly present. The principle is that God is all there is. And so if I'm asking for God in the form of this price point, because I know the dollar amount that I'm asking to be returned to me for this valuable piece of property. Is this making sense? I'm trying to give you a practical, like when you in your life and how you put these principles on their feet. How else can you use this? Anybody else? How can you apply this in your life? Now, y'all know I'm about to pick on somebody. Who going next? Claudette? Constance? VJ. Hi, VJ.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on something that Robin has said, that you said, Reverend Sherri. When the pandemic started in March, you said, well, what were you thinking? What was your first thought? So I think about people who are thinking of fear and anger. New thought has helped me to realize that those thoughts may come in, but it's up to me to let them go and put in thoughts of goodness, thoughts of joy. Even in the pandemic, thoughts of understanding and thoughts of growth. And I'm seeing that I'm able to see that. And Robin, as you said, being able to realize that it's not just for the other person next to me or the person who seems to be doing great 100%. It's for me. If it is to be, it's up to the God in me. And more and more and more, Reverend, I am seeing the God in me.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, Reverend Sherri, interesting enough, the pandemic had me busier than I've ever been, because I was able to go to virtual meetings, virtual programs, a lot of things that I would not have been able to see became available because they could no longer do anything in a physical space. So everything was online. I mean, I was going to concerts, book readings, meetings. And, I have a girlfriend. She said, it's like we got full-time jobs. I mean, we were having a ball.
Yeah.
So I really took the opportunity to kind of flip that. And I didn't let myself, get so that I was lonely because nobody was around. I was constantly interacting with people that I would have never interacted with
Right.
because, some of them were not only in this country, but in other countries.
Right.
So I really said, I'm going to make this positive. I'm not going to let this be a negative experience. And it hasn't been for me. It really has not.
Thank you for that. Yes, I agree. Anybody else? So back to the fourth principle. So practicing the presence. So we are taught to abide in the presence of God through visioning, solitude, prayer, and meditation. We are taught to abide in the presence of God through visioning, solitude, prayer, and meditation. So visioning, this was added. This is a term that Reverend Michael Beckwith uses. Visioning, where you are looking into the realm of possibility and seeing what can be. Now, I will tell you, often this step is taught as a prayer step, right? Where it's you're thinking silence, quiet. But I want to tell you about a book that I'm reading right now that I thought was really powerful. This book is called Flaming Hot, and it's Richard Montanez. And Richard Montanez is this Mexican-American, I don't think he is now, but former executive for Frito-Lay. But he started there as a janitor. And he started there as a janitor, and it was low level. It was the biggest job that anybody in his family had had. He was making $9 an hour, or no, not even that. It was less than that. He worked up to $9 an hour. And his grandfather told him, when you go in there and you mop that floor so that they know that a Montanez has mopped this floor. And so he took that attitude and taking initiative and came in. And while he's a janitor, the snack business kind of is about to go belly up, but basically the margins are very, very tight, and no company is really making any money, and there's not really been any innovation. Now, he doesn't have these words at this point as a janitor, but what happens is that the CEO puts out a video that says, well, I want ideas. Like, whatever you have ideas that can help us make this better, I want those ideas. And so Richard, janitor, thinks he must be talking to me. And so he starts looking for ideas. And one day and he was taking initiative, like going on rides with the delivery guys, going in different areas, like just kind of learning the business, right? Anyway, one day he's at a supermercado which is like the in his neighborhood in Rancho Cucamonga, and where he shops. And he said, and I went in and I just saw it. I saw that here we were dropping off these snacks that were flavored one way, and here were all of these spices that were a part of my culture, hot spices are part of my culture, and it was like that's the idea. And he told his wife, and she said, bring home a bag of unflavored Cheetos, basically before they put the cheese on it. And so he brought home a bag, and in their kitchen, they cooked up what became Flaming Hot, the Flaming Hot flavor on Cheetos. And then it just took off. Now Flaming Hot is everywhere. Everybody wants the Flaming Hot. So he talks about what he does with his kids now, or what he did with his kids as they were growing up. When they would sit around the dinner table, they would play ideas. He said he would give everybody 10 M&Ms, and you had to come up with an idea. And if you came up with a good idea, you got an extra M&M. But if you down talked somebody else's idea, you had to give up an M&M. And so it was this fun game and tasty game that he created with his kids to teach them to vision. So the whole point of the story, it's a long-winded way to talk about what it means to vision. That visioning can be this quiet experience where you're sitting in meditation, you're opening up to God, but it can also be you with a mastermind group, and you have an activity where you are focused on thinking big. And so the whole point of the session is for you to think big with your mastermind buddies. And maybe on the third Friday of every month, you get together and you guys just generate ideas. Questions, thoughts, ideas. Alita, were you going to say something? I see you took your mute off. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I must have just ran into it.
No worries, no worries. So visioning, I want to pull this out of like the religious context of this, that, and get you to get that visioning can be done in many different ways. Now, the second part of that is solitude. So you have to have time alone. I can't stress that enough. You cannot have your life built where you have no time by yourself. It is time alone that allows you to hear the presence and the power of God speak in you. When Moses perceived the burning bush, he was alone in the Midian desert tending sheep. When Jesus received the commission, he was in the wilderness by himself. The time by yourself there's no replacement for it. Now, maybe you lead a busy life and you're always going. And I want to challenge you to carve out some time in your day. So I'll share with you the system that I use, which is that I get up top of the morning, 5 a.m. every morning, and I have 2 solid hours to myself before I have to then become available to the world. What will be your system for giving yourself time? The deep ideas of life, right? You are here to bring forward that which has never been done. If you never have time by yourself, then you never make room for that which has never been done to come through you, and you go to the grave with what God sent you here to do still locked up inside of you. Thoughts, comments? How do you do on solitude? It's not a loneliness. This is deliberate time for yourself.
I think you hit it when you say it's not a loneliness. In my younger life, I was always busy, always doing, always being. And I look back now and realize much of that was running away from the solitude to truly listen and to hear the presence of God within me. And folks, I'm thankful that God did not give up on me. And one day, boop, hit me. And folks, I had a sickness I won't even go into now. But that's the thing that really put me to be able to listen.
Yes.
Listen. The silence was there. And I couldn't do anything else but listen. Thank you, God, for the opportunity of listening.
Thank you, VJ. Robin.
So I wonder, I get confused on the difference between solitude and meditation. Like, how do you go into solitude? Because I thought that meditation was like quieting the mind. So what's the difference between meditation and solitude?
So solitude is just time by yourself. It's however you purpose the time.
Mm.
It could be, I guess I wouldn't call it when you're working.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily have to be meditating in solitude.
Okay.
It's time by yourself fortifying you.
Mhm.
So the question is, what fortifies you? It could be a hold on. It could be, I was trying to find a quote for you guys. My phone is acting up. It could be you taking yourself to the movies.
Mm. Okay.
It could be you going to the spa. It
Mhm.
could be you taking a long walk in nature.
Okay.
Or it could be you meditating, right? It's not, right? But meditation is like a specific activity.
Mhm.
Solitude is time to yourself, for yourself, not necessarily sleeping. Though
Okay.
sleep could be a part of it.
Okay. Thank you for that.
There's a quote, there's a book called Never Broken. And oh, please tell me I got this quote. Well, anyway, I thought this was a good one. She said, I'm extending to you an invitation to go into the river of yourself to find the ocean of everything else. Anyway, I can't, I'm blanking on the exact quote, but she talks about that as an artist, and the artists who perform it, Jewel is one of the world's best-selling artists. The artists that deliver that love, I love to read their stories, read their biographies, because what you will find is that they spend a lot of time alone, right? And she had a quote in her book, but I listened to the audiobook and didn't read the book. And in there, she talks about you really can't get at what is yours to do unless you have that time alone, because you're listening for, if you think about like an artist, what makes an artist great is that they bring forward a new sound. All right, I'm not finding it. I was trying to see if I could get to it. I try to track it in my Evernote, but if I find it, I'll include it. You're listening for what has never been done. And sometimes the listening is you're actively in a meditation, but sometimes the listening is that you just go take a walk. You just go spend time alone. You'll get your nails done. You go get your hair done, or, but you have time to yourself, because you are not here to keep the status quo. There's nothing wrong with working a job. There's nothing wrong with serving someone else's vision on the way to fulfilling yours. So this is not making a job wrong, but it is saying that you have to have time where you are actively working on that which is yours to do, or creating space for it. So gardening could be one of those things where you're in solitude, right? Because you're in that activity, and it's something about gardening specifically, and walking in nature, and just being tapped into nature specifically opens space. And when you have that time alone, it creates space for that which is yours to do. Many times, many of us don't get space until we get sick. And so we will say, God took me through, right? And this thing, as if God does things in a temporary way. The God does things in a permanent way. If God made you sick, you'd never be able to get well. So we should like dispel that idea. I brought about this sickness because it's the only way I knew how to get my attention so that I could go ahead and do what God asked me to do in the first place. Go ahead, Robin.
All right. So I'm just wanted to clarify because I live alone, so I spend a lot of time alone. So I'm trying to understand the fortify yourself part. Can you?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you can live alone and do nothing to renew you. Lots of people live alone, but do nothing to renew themselves.
Mhm.
Okay, I can use this quote because it was so good. She says, it's diving into the river of yourself to find the ocean of everything else. Do a loving archaeological dig back to your real self.
Mhm.
So it's where you are diving into you
Mhm.
to get to know who you really are.
So it's like purposeful.
It's purposeful. Yes.
Okay.
It's purposeful. VJ. Hold your thoughts, Jordan. VJ, did you have a comment? I know you commented on what she said, but did you have a comment?
No, I got it. Thank you. Well, yeah, I do have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, folks, Reverend Sherri is speaking God's word. If you can, don't get to the point that God has to make you sick for you to listen to him.
Right.
Robin, don't wait for God to knock you down totally
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for you to listen to him. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Reverend Sherri, I just thought of something that Oprah, that I heard Oprah say, that, God will send you a pebble. And if you don't listen, then God will send you a stone. And if you don't listen, God will send you a brick. And if you still don't listen, God will send you that brick wall.
Yes. And I will say that again, so this is why this is important. Forget that noise in the background. There's a world view. And one of the things that we're doing is that we're opening up our world view about God. The concept of God sending something, a thing, is built on a worldview of an anthropomorphic God. I know we use those terms, right? And it's difficult because we use the he pronoun. I use the he pronoun. Is this the worldview, the way that so where I'm going with this once we get through the principle, which it looks like we're gonna have another night on this. The worldview in some of not some of all of the Bible stories is of a world that is flat with edges, pillars holding up the sky. You could walk to the edge and fall off. And God is up above. There's nothing below that. This idea of a devil comes later through history, but that's not a part of the Bible literature, even though there are things like devil in there, but not the way that we talk about it in 21st century or in 20th century America. But what you had beneath was like what they call Sheol, just the area of the dead, because the bodies were buried in Sheol. It's a world view. And so when we're reading these stories, it's being cognizant of the lens through which people are looking at the world. It's I know that there are some people out there today who are still flat earth people. but we kind of look at them sideways. You know, it's like you do realize that this dude literally just got in a spaceship and went up to the edge of the atmosphere, but we're still talking about a flat earth. Come on. And so my point is that your worldview, and what I'm offering to you is that these 5 principles can become your worldview, because how you view the world determines what you do in the world. So women, you have to be mindful not to say it's a man's world, because that's a worldview. Black people, you have to be mindful not to say it's a white person's world. Like, it's you got to get that my worldview determines what I do in the world. And I am here to bring forward that which has never been done. But if I come to the playing field thinking that the game is stacked against me, then it's not even possible for me. It used to be believed that you couldn't run beyond faster than a 4-minute mile. Now, if you're running a 4-minute mile, you're not a world-class athlete. There are men, and one day there will be women, but there are men who can run a sub-9 100 meters. I'm sorry, sub-10. No, sub-9, sub-10. Sub-10 is what they call it. Meaning nobody's at 9 seconds. I said minutes. 10, there are men today who are clocking in at under 10 seconds in 100 meters. That is enormously fast. And then we've got, you know, the great Shelly Ann Fraser-Price and the great Sha'Carri Richardson coming in at 10.6 seconds for the 100 meters. My point being is that if you come to the world, to the playing field, thinking that the world belongs to someone else and that you're just, I don't know, second class, then you will do second class things. It's a concept, and I keep shaping my head, but the idea is that you got to get this right in order to get this right. Constance says, thank you for clarifying what God does and does not. May we come to the understanding that we are the image, likeness, spirit, essence, and we are creating through and with the God energy. Yes. Yes. It's a very powerful concept to sit with and spend time with. So then when we come to these Bible stories, we don't have to be confused by them. We can realize that what we are reading is a world view. And so we want to be able to look through the world view and get the principle in the story, regardless of the worldview. So I don't need the worldview to be my worldview in order for me to get the principle that stands underneath the story. So I can read a story about Abraham being told to kill his only son, Isaac, and see the principle in the story. I don't need the story to not have an anthropomorphic Godhead figure in order for me to see the principle in the story. I can look at it as it is and see the principle that's being communicated. Questions? Can you do something with this? What can you do with this? Let's start there. How can you employ this? And while you're thinking about what you're gonna say, I'm gonna look see if I can get that quote from her. Oh, This is a good one. This ain't the one I wanted to give you, but this is good. Don't let yourself be betrayed twice. First by the experience, and then by the belief that it has ruined your ability to experience happiness, trust, or love. Isn't that good? This is Jewel. Oh, darn. Okay. Innocence is not lost. It's traded for wisdom. It's good. It's good, good, good. Self-love converts betrayal to wisdom, provided we let go of the pain. Anyway, those are good. I want to find that quote, but my point being is that the reason that you have this time alone is that what you're looking for is, or what you are making space for, right? What you're making space for is what is uniquely yours to do. And so you have to build it into your life. You're responsible for cultivating it. And if you don't cultivate it, it will not be there. And so if you live with someone, it's building that time, purposeful time by yourself. And if you live alone, which, well, I guess I don't live alone. I guess I got to count Jordan. So, but before him, I did live alone. So
That was sad.
I know it is sad, bad. But if you live alone, then you have to have that purposeful time to say, this portion of my day is for the purpose of cultivating and renewing and restoring myself. And it must be every day, not once a week. I know, sorry, Robin. It must be once a day. Why? If you brushed your teeth once a week, how long do you think they would stay in your mouth? There's some laws that govern expression. You can't brush your teeth once a week and think that you're going to have a good experience. You cannot have solitude once a week and think that you're going to have a good experience. You must have solitude in your life every day.
That was my plan, once a week. You must have heard me.
Oh, I actually laughed out loud myself.
That's nice. That's nice.
Let me tell you, but start with 5 minutes a day. Start with 5 minutes a day and then build up to it. I will tell you that where I am today, I have a solid 2, and then I get pockets throughout the day with the little things that I do just to pull time away that's just for me, that's uninterrupted time for me. And since I started to do that, first of all, I started to do it because it was part of my self-care, right? So it was, I used to envy people that did stuff like that, thinking that I couldn't do it for myself. And I don't know where that comes from. It even, I think I shared this story in the after party for the Sunday service, that I went and got a massage for the first time in years, like even before the pandemic. It was just years. And the person who was doing the massage said, she said, you feel like you don't have, she reads people. She said, you feel like you don't have support. I said, yeah. And she said, well, you have to build that. But she wasn't like telling me, like scolding me. She was just talking in general. And it was like a light bulb went on. I was like, oh my God. And so I would see people with all of this support and be envious of all of this support that they got, not realizing that they built that support. In my mind, it was just people showing up to help them. No, you build the support. Whatever it is that you desire in your life, you begin to put it in place. And so you have to decide what is Team Robin, right? You need Team Robin that's a part of keeping Robin together. You need Team Alita that's a part of keeping Alita together. You need Team Claudette, right? You need Team Constance. You need Team Brenda, Team Glenda, Team Layla, Team VJ? Who's a part of the team that keeps you together? And so it made me come at everything that I do differently. And so I have like, my prayer call, and I'm very clear that this is part of my team that keeps me together. And so I don't miss the prayer call because I know that it's an essential ingredient with this group and what they provide. And then I've got the mastermind call, and then I don't miss the mastermind call because they're an essential ingredient, right? There are too many things that I do in my day as a businesswoman, as a head of an organization, as a financial soon-to-be advisor, as a mom. There are too many things that I do in my day to not then give back into me so that there's something to give out. And so you need rules around your solitude. So one of my rules is 1 massage a week, because it lowers the cortisol levels, which is the fear hormone. One of my rules is that I'm up at a certain time every day, no hidden snooze, and spending that time with God, talking to my CSO, because this is how I pay for, if you will, all the other stuff that I got going on in my life. Glenda, go ahead.
One of the things that I have started doing is, especially since becoming a prayer chaplain, is I bought myself, Inspire has a prayer journaling Bible, and you can color in it. And so while you're meditating on the scripture, there are over 400 pages in there where you can just color, and it's so wonderful just to be able to meditate on scripture while you're doing this activity, and it pushes. And I didn't even realize it. I knew I wanted something to do, because I'm not out and about in the world, still having to stay at home, but it feels that.
Yeah.
And it does that for the solitude. And I'm an only child. One thing, when Robin was saying that she lived alone, I lived alone for a very, very long time. And what was interesting is in 2018, I realized I don't want to live alone anymore. And so in 2019, my daughter and my son-in-law decided that you done failed twice, so we gonna go ahead and we gonna all get a little spot together so that we can help you or whatever. But I have my own room. And so I am used to being by myself and all of that. But the beauty is, even on days when I am feeling challenged, I love laying in here and hearing the sounds in the rest of the house. I don't have to be a part of it, but I can hear it. And then, my time, I've been saying, I've been suffering with insomnia or whatever, but now listening to what you said today, I'm going to say maybe God has rearranged my clock so that I do have that time alone with the Mother, Father, Allness presence, where it's not interrupted because everybody is asleep.
Yes.
But I still live in community.
Yes. That's how you use principle. This thing is happening. I'm choosing to call it good because of the omnipresence of God, because good is everywhere present. So this must be good. Anybody else? Prayer. So I don't know if I need to do a whole lot on prayer. I've got an entire series on prayer based on Hypatia Hasbrook's book. You can find it on the YouTube channel. Handbook of Effective Prayer is what it's called. But what I will say for prayer, as far as practicing the presence. So one of the things that we do in the prayer chaplain ministry is that before we pray, there's a whole work that we do where we breathe, so that we begin to breathe the breath that's breathing us, right? We take our attention from our head to our heart, like literally move the attention from the head to the heart. We call on the name of God by whatever name we use. I use the name CSO, but somebody else may use the name Abba, you know, somebody else may use Daddy, somebody else may use God, like it just, whatever your name for God is. And then you listen, and then you pray. And then once you've prayed whatever prayer it is, then you release it, you give thanks for its manifestation, and you close the prayer. That doing that puts you in the vibration, puts you in agreement with God. And I guess maybe that should say that's about all of practicing the presence. Practicing the presence is about getting into agreement with God. So how do you know if the solitude, if the visioning, if the prayer, if the meditation is working? Does it put you in agreement with God? How do I know that I'm in agreement with God? Because I'm seeing all possibility. I know I'm not feeling limited in any way. And so you can think of it as like a scale, right? There's I feel completely limited and confined. I feel completely free and open. And then where am I on that scale? And that's a way for you to think about what's the quality of the solitude that I'm giving myself? What's the quality of the prayer that I'm practicing? What's the quality of the meditation? Am I feeling freer? Or am I simply meditating because they said you need to meditate? Right? The whole point of any of this practicing the presence is so that I can open up in a wider way. So we've all felt this, but I want to give you what you're reaching for in your own experience. It doesn't have to have this level of exhilaration, or I think it will, but don't think of it as like it needs to feel like this, but this will explain it. If you have ever watched a sporting event or a great concert, you know, I remember being at the Prince concert. And in fact, this was the one that he did in Los Angeles. And he bought out the Staples Center and played every day for so many days, something like that. It was like every day was a concert with Prince, and the tickets were $25. Just come on. So some people went every night. Well, I didn't have it like that. I think I got to 3 of the 25 or so shows. Anyway, the point is that with that show, it was like being transported. Like I'm nothing else mattered. And I'm just in that space of like, this dude is amazing. Like, but not just that, but just, you know, reminiscing, enjoying the present moment, and I'm in that space of all possibility. That's what you're reaching for in the prayer and the solitude, is that you're moving to greater and greater degrees of an inner freedom. Does that make sense? So, or sporting events, if you have ever watched your team, you know, win a game, you know, I remember when, this is when I first started watching basketball and was getting into Michael Jordan and watching him just do these incredible feats and just being like, oh my God, this dude is absolutely amazing. And that euphoria, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying that as you go through your prayer, I want you to not go through it perfunctory, where you're praying because you're supposed to pray, or you're meditating because you're supposed to meditate, but where it's greater and greater degrees of freedom. And so if what you're doing is not producing that freedom, then there may be some tweaking. Maybe I need to learn some more prayer techniques. Maybe the prayer technique that I'm using is not the best prayer technique for me. Maybe it's just the one that I know. If I'm meditating and my meditation is not producing greater degrees of freedom, maybe I need to get some meditation, a meditation check and get some more information, because there are so many forms of meditation. You know, there's a chanting as a form of prayer. There's journal writing as a form of prayer. You know, there's so many forms of prayer. There's praying with others. You may learn that it actually works better when I pray with other people. I found that out with meditation. I can't meditate by myself. That's a way, I don't say it's a waste of time, but it's not my best work. So I never meditate by myself. I find a meditation group, and every day I find a meditation, because there's multiple ones going on. I find a meditation group and I go dial into there for like 20 minutes and meditate. Alita says, feeling gets the blessing. Yes, it does. And so practicing the presence of God is about practicing the presence of no limits, right? And so we do that through the best methods that we know, but if the methods that we're using are not working, then we want to get some coaching on those methods. I feel like I've given a lot. I want to hear from y'all. I want to know where you are, what's resonating, what's sticking.
I would say I'm like you. The whole idea of just sitting and meditating, I don't get it. I can pray, and what I have found is coloring. It has to be an active meditation. Coloring, crocheting, listening to like spa kind of music. And I have a huge tapestry in my room of the yin yang symbol. And sometimes I'll just turn on some music and just look at that, and it has a mandala around it. And just looking at all the nuances of that, I can do that. But just sitting and that's not me either.
Yes, yes, yes. Constance, Claudette, Brenda, let me hear from y'all. VJ.
Well, interesting what I said, and I don't know how I came to this. I really want to learn the whole power of breathing. I want to know about how you breathe, what that breath does. I just believe that it's a lot of healing in that. And it just came to me, just here recently. That's something I really want to learn to do. And I think if I did that, that would help me really meditate the way I want to. But that whole concept of breath.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm about to send this to you just now, to everybody. I'm gonna put it in the chat. I gotta make sure I gotta find it right quick. Oh, where is it? Not finding it. Sure. The screenshots. Yes, there is. I don't know why I can't find it. I sent this to friends. This show literally is about that, about the breath work. And thank you for saying that. So the breath, I don't have it handy. It's over there. The breath is so powerful. It's free speech. Okay. All right. The breath is so powerful because we are breathing the breath that is breathing us. When you think about that. So when you take time to concentrate on the breath, you are essentially taking time to concentrate on God. God is breathing us. That breath is involuntary. You never have to tell yourself, breathe. Oh, I found it. Okay. So I'll put this in the chat for you guys. This is a show, the Lisa Garr show. But there's this particular episode is on the art of anti-aging, but in that they talk about the breath. And so the breath, and I'm using what they shared in the thing, the breath is opposite sides of the same coin, right? And so your emotions, in the untrained person, your emotions control the breath, right? So you think about when you get into a tight situation, a situation where you feel like you are where something is threatened, right? Then the breath gets shorter, right? And you start breathing from here, you start breathing from up here. And you feel the anxiety and all of that, and you're breathing from up here. But in the trained person, the breath can transform the emotions. And the thing about the emotions is that the emotions are not just up here. The emotions, science tells us, this part ain't even new thought, although we've been teaching it for hundreds of years. The emotions travel from the head. Whenever you feel an emotion in the head, you perceive it, it's already in your body, everywhere through your body, carried there by what are called neuropeptides. Simultaneous to you perceiving an emotion, that emotion is everywhere in your body. And so the breath is the connecting link between the mind and the body. And so you can allow the emotions to control the breath, or you can use the breath to transform the emotions. And there's a simple breath, something that she does, and I've been doing it now. I had been doing breath work because I had studied Wim Hof, does a lot of breath work, and some other people, but then I got off track and it was like, okay, I can't figure out how to add this back. So I left it out of my daily routine. And literally after watching this show, I added it back. And so she teaches you a straw breath, which we can do right now. So in a straw breath, you just take a deep breath in through the nose, and then you let it out through the mouth, but as if blowing through a straw. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale through the nose. Exhale. And something that you want to make sure you're not doing is that you're not doing this, right? Shoulders are level so that you want the air going down. What happens when you raise the shoulders, you have the lung capacity, and the air only goes halfway down the lungs. To get it all the way to the bottoms of the deep enough breath, you keep the shoulders level and you breathe all the way in through the belly. Exhale. And so when you're breathing in, you want the belly to extend. Inhale. Exhale. So what's powerful about the breath is that it is instantly calming, or can be instantly calming. And so there's a timer. You can do any timer, but this was a gentle one as opposed to the timer that's on my phone. It's called Simple Timer, and they have a free version you can put on your phone. And I literally just set the app so that it's, that it goes, it keeps the time. Okay, you can't see that. It keeps the time, and literally, and so what I've trained myself to do is 3 minutes a day. It doesn't take that much to begin to do a new habit. Now, as I grow, I'll add more time. Today and this month is 3 minutes, but as I go, I'll add a minute. So I'm so glad you said that, Brenda, because again, that is another way of practicing the presence of God. And that's something that you can do at work. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You can be in the middle of some stressful work experience or whatever, and it's like, and all of a sudden, and you'll get that, Robin, at the yawning. but it oxygenates the body. It transforms the emotions. And if you notice that when you're not in your right mind, you're in an agitated state or an angry state, what you'll realize is that really what it is my breath is short. And it feels like something needs to get better in order for me not to be in that state. But really all I need to do is to breathe, and I'm out of that state. And no circumstance has to change. just what I'm doing, how I'm showing up to whatever's in front of me.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I hope this has been helpful tonight. Next week,
Yes,
so we will have to come back and do the fifth principle, and it deserves all of these deserve a lesson by themselves. But the thing that I want you to grasp is we're talking about a worldview. We're talking about a worldview. And so what I'm offering to you with teaching you these principles is a new way to look at the world. A new way to look at the world and its seeming problems. And so now you can see how we come from New Thought and we say there is no evil, because I'm coming from the perspective that God is all there is. And I'm coming from the perspective that even if evil appears, I have something in me that I can do something about it. So even if it's, not my president in the office, if it's not my economy, whatever, even if those things are happening around me, that right in me, I can change my response to it. And when I change my response to it, what it is for me changes, even though everybody else may be being knocked down. This is what it means by in the 91st Psalm, when it says that I'll look to my right and I'll see 10,000 fall on one side and 1,000 on another. But it ain't gonna come near me. It's not gonna come near me because I started responding to it differently. And when I started responding to it differently, it started showing up differently for me. Oh, I wanted y'all to hear it. It was low. Hold on. This is what it sounds like. So it was a gentler sound than what was on my when I used the timer on my phone. Okay. Spirit saying stop right there. So I appreciate you guys. Next week you will be with Reverend Keith Russell Lee, and he will be covering Proverbs chapter 3, verses 33 to 35. We have the supplemental material that'll go out on Thursday next week. And then when we come back on July 28th, we will focus on principle number 5, and then we'll look at those stories. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being a part of tonight. Good night.